Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're going to be casting some resins. Well, on last week's show, I took a paint tank from Princess Auto and converted it into a pressure pot for casting resins. And I thought that on this week's show, what I would do is do a simple clear casting to show you guys what a difference a pressure pot can make when it comes to getting clear castings. Well, a big part of resins is preparation. And I'm going to be using these East Coast resins today. This is what I've been using recently, and I kind of like this stuff. So we have two parts here. This is resin and the hardener, and you mix these in a 1-to-1 ratio, and that ratio is measured by volume, not by weight, as some of them are. So what I'm going to do is I've got two small clear cups here for measuring, and I'm just going to mark cup A here, and on this one over here I'm going to mark cup B. I have two more small clear cups here, and this is actually what I'm going to cast in, believe it or not. But I do want to make some kind of project that will be usable. So for both of these, I will be sinking a threaded insert into them and turning them into jig knobs, so at least the resin doesn't get wasted. I also have here two larger cups that I will mix the resin in. So now that we have that done, one of these is going to go in the pressure pot. You can't see what's going on in there. So for that reason, I'm going to take one of the casting pots and I'm just going to glue, using some hot glue, I'm going to glue this little cup to a scrap of plywood. And the only reason I'm doing this is just to stabilize it, because once I put it down inside that pressure pot, I don't want it tipping over and then getting resin everywhere. Now, like I said, I don't want to waste this stuff that I'm mixing, so I will be making a couple jig knobs out of whatever I make. So I've taken a T-nut. This is temporary. This is going to come off later, but I got the T-nut here. I put a 1/4 hex nut on there, and I've cut a little piece of MDF here with a 5/16 hole, just so we can slide over top of this, just like this. And then I'm going to take a little bit of Teflon tape. The reason I want that Teflon tape on there is because I want to seal up the threads that are going to be inside of that threaded insert. The last thing that I want is to pour the resin and for some strange reason have the resin go down inside these threads and seal them all up on me. So I'm going to thread this insert on over the T-nut until it comes right to the bottom, just like that. And once I get that set, this is pretty much ready to go. All I'm going to do then is sit it in my cup. You can see there that it's supported above the bottom. Maybe you can't. There you go. Now you can see that it's supported above the bottom. You can adjust this however you like. If you want it higher, then put it higher and then just thread the nut down to seat it in place. But I think I'm happy there with where that is. So this one is ready to go. And then I'm going to make the next one, same configuration, same thing, and I'm going to get that cup set up for pouring as well. There you go. And that one there now is ready for casting as well. So our next step here that we have that done is we need to mix our resin. I find it helpful to pour the thicker of the two first, and you can see it's rather thick. So when it comes to trying to equal the part, because it's measured by volume, not by weight, that thicker liquid is hard to match up. If you're trying to pour to equal another cup by visual means, It's so much harder to do it pouring a thick liquid. You would much rather pour the thinner liquid, and that way you can add or subtract much easier to it. So let's just see what we've got there. And that looks pretty much perfect. So I'm going to pour part A, the thicker one, and then part B into it and stir it together. In goes part A. And it's perfectly fine to use your tongue depressor to get it all out. You just don't want to use your tongue depressor when you're pouring this into a casting, because there can be some of the material on the edges that has not been fully mixed. And as soon as you put that in, you're going to cause yourself some problems. So there's part A, and in goes part B. And we'll start mixing. Now for this one here, it goes pretty much cloudy almost right away as soon as you start mixing. You want to mix until you get it pretty much clear again. You don't want that cloudy mixture. You also don't want to mix too vigorously, because mixing like crazy will infuse air bubbles into this sort of thing, and you don't want that. We're looking pretty clear there now, but I'm going to mix it up just a little more just to be sure. All right. I think we're well mixed there now. Everything looks good. So I'm going to take this now, and we're going to pour them into our molds. So we'll take our first one here. This is for our pressure pot. And we're just going to pour it in until it reaches just level with the top of our threaded insert. And we're going to line that up in the middle there, just like that. And then we're going to pour our second one. Now remember, don't scrape this out, because some of it may not necessarily be mixed. Pour out what you can, and if there's any left in there, well, you know what? That's the cost of doing business. That's all there is to it. Pour a little more in there, and a little more in our pressure pot one. So there we go. There is our casting. Place that gently down into the bottom of our pot. I'm going to leave it there just like that. Let's get our lid on. Now, depending on what type of resin or what make of resin you're using, your working time is going to really vary. So make sure that you read your manufacturer's instructions and suggestions and know exactly what it is that you need to do to make this work. All right, there we go. So we're going to get some air hooked up onto this. Click, and introduce air into the pot. So we're up to 30, almost 30 psi there. I'm going to cast this one at 45. The only reason I say that is because I've noticed that the check valve here, or the safety release, starts to leak at about 46 pounds. And there it is right there, 45, just a little over 45 pounds. Check valve is not hissing, so we're good. I'll release the air on that. And sorry for getting in the way, but I gotta check this here. I'm a little low, I'm actually at 44. I'm gonna bring that up just a touch. So at this point in time now, there's not much to do other than just to wait. Either way, it's gonna be at least tomorrow until I can touch it. I'll see you when this stuff is cured up. So there you are. This is the casting that was done without the pressure pot. I mean, without the light, it looks spectacular, but as soon as you take a closer look, there are thousands and thousands of air bubbles in here. This is by far, or the furthest thing from a clear casting. But in most cases, you might be happy with it, I don't know. So let's have a look at the one that was done in the pressure pot. And there we have the casting. We'll just apply a light and look at the difference. Can you guys see that? Is this showing? I hope this is showing on the camera, because the difference is night and day. There are no little air bubbles that are present in the one that was out or without the pressure pot casting. This is a very clear casting. There's no air bubbles. I can see there are a couple. If I turn this around, just so you don't think I'm hiding anything, see a couple right up there in the threads. See that there? There's a couple up in the threads of the threaded insert. But other than that, the casting is crystal clear in comparison to our one that was done outside of the pressure pot. That looks like a starry night. So what I'm going to do with these now is I am going to take them over to the lathe. I am going to turn them both into usable jig knobs, and we're going to polish them up using micro abrasives. And once we're done, we will compare them again so you can see the difference that you get between casting without a pressure pot and casting with. All right, and although this isn't a perfect turning, I'm going to go through the sanding and polishing process, and I will show you the results of this one once I'm done. And there we have our one jig knob done. This is the one that was cast outside of the pressure pot, and you can see there all of the bubbles that are inside of that. Now, because of all those bubbles, it's really difficult to get a high quality shiny finish on this. And although this is shiny and smooth and looks great, it's not clear. And it's not clear because of those thousands of little tiny air bubbles that are in there. So now that we have that one done, let's turn the one that was done in the pressure pot and we'll compare the difference. You guys really don't need to see a video of me turning a second jig knob. So I will see you when I get this one turned and polished, and we'll compare the two. Well, just to remind you, there is the one that was done outside of the pot. We'll just give it a little light there. You can see it's rather cloudy or bubbly inside. And let's just look at the one that was done inside the chamber. Can you guys see that? That thing is clear all the way through. It could use a little more polishing on the finish, but the actual casting itself is clear. There's no bubbles in there. There's nothing in there to mess up the design. I mean, that is pretty cool, and it's quite a drastic difference between the two. And although they were both turned the same way and cast at the same time, there is a definite difference between this one here and this one here as far as clarity goes. And there you have it. Comparison between being cast with a pressure pot and without. Guys, there is a drastic difference between the two. And depending on what you're after, it may not make a difference to you. If you're just looking to cast some resins and turn some pen blanks and that sort of thing, and all you really want is to have maybe a solid color, maybe clarity isn't isn't what you need, but I'm going to tell you today that even with colors, clarity makes a difference. It makes it so much more vibrant and so much nicer. It's not as muddy. That is the thing. You have bright, vibrant colors, and when you do it in a pressure pot, I don't want to say it removes the bubbles, because that's not really what it does, but it does make the bubbles less visible, drastically less visible. Guys, this project may not be for all of you, but you know what? There may be some of you out there that have been considering resin casting, whether it be for casting little chunks of burl, or whether it be for pen blanks or turning blanks, or just for fun little projects. So this might be right up your alley, just so you know roughly what it is that you're looking for or looking at, or what you can expect. There are all kinds of resins on the market, guys. That's why there's no mention here as to how long you need to leave it to cure, how long of a working time, that sort of thing. That is specific to the type of resin that you're using, and I don't know what you're using, so I can't give you those times. There's no sense really in even giving you the times that I used, simply because there are those that are out there that will use that as their guideline and say, well, Kenny kept his in the pot for 6 hours, I kept mine in there for 6, and it still looks like crap. Well, maybe your set time is 12. So there's really no sense in bringing up the times, but what I'm bringing up to you and showing you a practical example of is the difference between pressure pot and no pressure pot. So next week, we're going to take the pressure pot and the resin casting, and we're going to take it one step further, and we're going to do a small little project that I think you guys will enjoy. I think it'll spark some ideas in you and get you going if resin casting is what you're looking at trying. Guys, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell so that you don't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. This is something very different, and that's what Alternative Tuesdays are all about here on my channel. And I hope that some of you are going to give it a try. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesdays.